Okay, so good evening, everyone. Welcome. This is the Ridgemont Community Virtual Town Hall. It's good to see everyone. This is the second town hall this calendar year that I've done, and we'll do hopefully six over the next few months in River Ward. It's my opportunity to provide updates on some major projects in the immediate neighborhood and to take questions, really have a dialogue with you about some of these major events or initiatives that are happening locally. We are recording this session. There are some folks who can't make it tonight, so we're recording it simply to be able to share it with people who can't make it. So we want to let you know it's being recorded. If you ask questions, just keep that in mind. I'm going to go through the entire presentation. It should take me about half an hour. At the end of my report, there will be a brief presentation from the LRT Stage 2 team to talk about Walkley Station and the maintenance repair center that's being built immediately south of our community. And once all the presentations are done, we'll open it up for questions, comments, dialogue. There's two main ways you can ask questions tonight. You can physically type your question in the chat box or chat feature of Zoom, or you can raise your hand at the end and we'll promote you up and you can ask your question. So whatever you feel comfortable with. And of course, if anything comes up after tonight's meeting that you want information on, feel free to ask. So no problem in that regard. So I do want to acknowledge that we're on the unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. I'd like to honor that the land and peoples of the Algonquin Nation whose ancestors have lived on this territory for millennia and whose culture and presence have nurtured and continue to nurture this land. Some of my notes here I've already gone through, so I'm just reading them real quick. I do want to thank two of my staff who are with me tonight, Andrea Ward, my office manager, and Aaron McCracken, who works in my office and serves your community here in the South End. Thank you both for coming tonight. And I do note I've seen Norm Payne, who is the president of the Ridgemont Community Association, and I think a few of his directors are here as well. So Norm, thank you for joining us. Before I start the presentation, I want to give a very brief update on COVID vaccinations, which is very important for a number of you, all of us. Our neighborhood in particular, the Ridgemont, Banff, Ledbury, NN private communities have been identified as an at-risk neighborhood. We do get prioritization for vaccines in the city of Ottawa. Right now, all persons 80 years of age or older, anywhere in Ottawa, it's your turn to be vaccinated. Adults receiving home care in our community, 18 years of age or older, can get vaccines right now. Indigenous, First Nation, Inuit people, 50 years of age or older, anywhere in Ottawa can be vaccinated now, in addition to all or many of our healthcare service providers, and they're going through their employers to get vaccines. For our community, we do have local vaccination centers that cater to our community. So rather than being directed to one of the 7 satellite City of Ottawa centers, at-risk communities, in addition to being prioritized, have a localized itinerant type of locations that is vaccinating people. And the Albion Heatherington Community Center in Heatherington is our local spot. There are others, but that is the main spot locally. The main challenge right now is acquiring vaccines from the upper levels of government. The federal government acquires the vaccines from the international companies that are making the vaccine. They distribute it based by population to the various provinces and territories, and then that's disseminated down to the various municipalities and health authorities in Ontario. So Ottawa is ready to go. I have full confidence in the team in Ottawa, who is well organized and ready to go. The crunch comes on the first day when a new cohort is allowed to call in or register online. That puts tremendous stress on the system. We saw that this week. The provincial booking system came down briefly And yes, some people for Ottawa Public Health had to call in or queue up online, but everyone has been getting appointments. People who have gone to get their vaccine have been pleased with. It didn't take long once they got there. So I understand people's concern that we are in a worldwide pandemic, but finally the light, despite going into the red category tomorrow, the more people we can get vaccinated sooner, the quicker we are going to get out of this pandemic. So I wanted to provide some notes at the beginning on the vaccines. So Andrea, if we'll go to our first slide.
Just give me a second.
Okay. And the flyer you got in the mailbox or you've seen online, we're basically going to follow that flow tonight, the major issues. Again, at the end, if I don't cover something that you've got a question on, by all means, this is your time as well, and I'd be happy to take any question that you have. So just, pardon me? So just as an overview, Airport Parkway expansion, we'll talk about the Trillium line. As I said, we have the team from the Walkley Station and Maintenance Storage Facility for LRT Phase 2. They will be providing a presentation immediately after I speak. The Anand Private Residential Construction. So on the west side of the Shoppers Drug Mart, we have Anand Private. There's 2 new towers going in there. I will provide a brief overview of that work. The Bank Street Infrastructure Renewal and Road Construction Project. That's going to be a major project in our community in a few years. I'm going to provide an update to you on that. The Hydro One corridor, immediately south, or depending where we live, it's in the middle of our community between Ridgemont and Banff Ledbury. The Hydro corridor is going to be upgraded next year. I want to give you some information on that. Then our local gas station's been sitting vacant for a number of months. Petro-Canada at Bank and Walkley will provide you a very brief update there. And then I want to touch base on the Halul Bat Mosque School and Community Center on Albion. Not mentioned is the official plan. I will provide some comments on the official plan as well before I hand it over to the LRT team. So let's go to the first slide about the Airport Parkway. Okay, so the Airport Parkway. In 2013, the City of Ottawa last updated the Transportation Master Plan. And the Transportation Master Plan is a giant blueprint that identifies the major transportation projects for the city in the short and medium terms. About approximately a 10-year timeline for that plan. And it was at that time that the widening of the Airport Parkway was approved by City Council, 2013. In 2016, after I came into office, at that point, an environmental assessment was required by the provincial government to review the plan, look at other options, to really examine this from an environmental perspective. And that was approved by the provincial government. So it's a 3-phase project. It's widening the Airport Parkway the entire way from Brookfield High School to the airport. But phase 1, obviously the first phase, is to focus on the Brookfield to Hunt Club stretch. And our 2-lane parkway, which is 1 lane in each direction, will become 4 lanes. So it's doubling the capacity of the parkway. And there will be a median in the middle. So cars will no longer be basically passing each other from side mirror to side mirror. There will be a safer design of that street, so cars will not come into contact. We've had some tragic accidents, as I'm sure you're aware, on the Airport Parkway over the many years, and this will address that issue, certainly improve safety. We have a multi-use pathway on the east side of the parkway now, which is very nice. It follows Sawmill Creek, and a brand new multi-use pathway will be built on the west side as well. And this will also include a new off-ramp at Walkley Road. So for those of you who live in Ridgemont, Banff Ledbury, this will be a faster way to get home if you drive. So you'll be able to get off at Walkley and turn left and go home. There will be some modifications to Walkley Road west of the Airport Parkway, and I'm working with the Riverside Park Association in that regard, but we're looking at making Walkley Road a 2-lane street instead of the current 4 as a traffic calming initiative. So the details are still very preliminary, but that is sort of the intent. So I know this is hard to see, but sort of a map of phase 1, Brookfield to Walkley Road to Hunt Club Road. I'll just mention a few more things that the project itself is not funded by tax dollars per se. It's coming from what are called development charges. So when a development is built, a developer has to pay the city of Ottawa a number of fees that go towards infrastructure, that go towards parks and recreation, that go towards transit. And one of them is roads under the infrastructure umbrella. And so the financing of the Airport Parkway widening is through development charges. The city was overly ambitious when it estimated development revenue over time. And so for those of you who've been keenly watching the Airport Parkway, this project's been delayed a number of years, and it's because the anticipated revenue from development charges never materialized. And so there's been a delay to accumulate the money to pay for this project. So what are the next steps? Well, later this year, the city will hire a consultant to finalize the final design of this project. That will take at least a year to do. And it's estimated by the end of 2022, the city will have a blueprint ready to then tender. So contractors who want to bid on this job will know exactly in the finest of detail what the expectations are, so they can cost out their own bids and submit that to the city. So that process will be, like I said, at least a year long. So construction, if you're eager to see this built, the best case scenario would be construction, I think, summer of 2024. But I think that's very ambitious. I don't think the city's going to make it. This could be a 2025 project. And again, it's going to take 2 years to go between Brookfield and Hunt Club. So this is a lengthy project. Okay, Anand Private. So Anand Private, like I said, is the street 1 block west of Bank Street. It's, if you know Shoppers Drug Mart, then a little private that you turn into between the hotel and Shoppers Drug Mart is called Anand Private. And it's the same owner who owns the hotel, the current condo, and the 2 new condo towers that are being built now. So a site plan was approved back in June of 2019, and it's 2 17-story towers with a 6-story podium in the middle. So that will yield 362 units in total. And the construction is on schedule. It's going well. Certainly a lot going with the foundations have been done, and they're already at least the 3rd or 4th story. I was at Swiss Chalet last week with my girls, and it looked like at least 4, maybe 5 stories have been built already. So they are going fast on this project. I'll just note that last month, for everyone who lives on Anand Private, I mailed them a bulletin. Every unit that exists now on Anand received a bulletin in the mail from me that gave them an update, a detailed update on this project, as well as the Walkley Station project, because they're going to have 2 major projects beside them for all of 2021 and probably most of 2022. So obviously there are some challenges if you're living beside not just one construction site, but what will be 2. So I'm certainly doing my best to work with them and mitigating some of those issues. So that's Anand Private. Okay, Bank Street construction. So this is a major project that is in the queue for our community. There have been meetings, not recently. The preliminary design was worked on, it wasn't 2020, I'd say going back to 2019. Certainly your local community association has been engaged in this project for quite some time. So you may know that Bank Street, all the way from Wellington, but where the Parliament buildings are, all the way to the Rideau River, so through the downtown core Centertown, the Glebe, Old Ottawa South, all of their water infrastructure underneath the road has been replaced. The road has been redesigned, and that work has stopped at the river. And so the next phase for the city of Ottawa is to replace all the underground water infrastructure between the Rideau River at Billings Bridge, that the actual bridge, and all the way to Ledbury Avenue. And when the city of Ottawa replaces infrastructure underneath the street, and your street is an arterial road, which Bank Street is in this case, the road automatically qualifies to be rebuilt as a complete street. And a complete street makes the street much more safer for pedestrians and cyclists. And it beautifies it. I know this is your community. I know I'm not talking out of school. Bank Street is probably not the most aesthetically pleasing streets in the city to go for a walk. You probably avoid it to go for a walk. It will not remove any travel lanes, existing travel lanes for vehicles, but it will put greater priority on safety for pedestrians and cyclists. And so there's a redesign component of the street. I think 99% of people are focused and concerned about what that street will look like, how it will be rebuilt, how it will be better for pedestrians and cyclists. There is a traffic light, a new traffic light that's proposed for Notting Hill at Bank, which will allow people who live in the Ridgemont community, Banff Ledbury, to come up Banff and cross Bank here, because when you get to the other side, which is the Swiss Chalet and Starbucks, which RioCan owns, there is a right-of-way for a multi-use pathway to actually be built through their parking lot. And when you get to the west side property line where those new condo towers are being built, a new multi-use pathway will be built to connect to the one that exists to bring you to Walkley Station. So that will not happen until the Bank Street project is done. And then you will have a safe passage to get from your community to the Walkley Station without having to go down Walkley to get to the transitway where you are now. So that's always been part of the package, but it's one of many improvements that are going to be made. So the city's going to be reaching out to the businesses in time. A number of businesses along the Bank corridor between Walkley and Kitchener have multiple entranceways on their property. Think the beer store. There's properties on the east side that don't just have one driveway, but multiple. The city wants to reduce the number of entryways, because the more intersections you have with passing pedestrians and cyclists, the greater the risk is to them that they're going to get clipped by a car coming in or out of there. And so the city's doing outreach with businesses to have those conversations. And the median now, which really doesn't exist, the median exists around Kitchener and Bank Street, but there's really no median in the middle. And the city's looking at building a median, which will be depressed or at grade that you can drive over in some spots, and raised or curbed in other spots to prevent sort of a Wild West free flow of vehicles that we have now. So there is a meeting scheduled. If you just go to the next slide for me, Aaron. There is a meeting scheduled for April 22nd. So if you are interested in what the redesigned Bank Street is going to look like, the next public consultation meeting hosted by the city is now tentatively scheduled for April 22nd at 7 p.m. It will be on Zoom. However, I have made a request that should public health guidelines allow, that there be opportunities for people to come to the Jim Durrell Arena on one day. You make an appointment, and if you want to look at the illustrations, if you want to speak to the project leaders, it's very difficult to get a true sense and understanding of the scope of this project looking at drawings on your computer screen or on your laptop. And I have requested quite strongly that if it's safe to do so, that in addition to an online opportunity, that the city consider doing something in person. The last time we met, for those of you who attended, they had maps, and I know, Norm, you were there, they had maps that were 50 feet long, 75 feet long, that went block by block, Kitchener, all the way down to the river, the Rideau River. And you really got, I think, a more clear sense of what was being proposed along the way. And so I just think if it's possible for the City of Ottawa to do that, that they do that. So like I said, they want to finish the design this year in 2021. Detailed design will be probably planned in 2022. They expect to tender the entire project from the river to Kitchener at some point in 2022. And then actual construction will be broken down into 3 phases, starting at the north end by the river. So it might go from the river to, let's just say, I don't know, Kilbourne, the river to Heron, Heron to Walkley, and then Walkley to Kitchener or Ledbury. And so we are going to be at the tail end of this project. So we are not going to see construction in our neighborhood for probably 5 years, at least 5 years. But they need to get the design completed within the next year, because the entire package has to be tendered, bid on, and then we just get in the queue for when we actually get the work done. Okay, next slide. We'll go to the Hydro One corridor. So the Hydro One corridor, as you know, is the large hydro corridor, sort of in the south end of the Ridgemont community, north end of Banff-Ledbury. And Hydro One, none of us are customers of Hydro One. We are all customers of Hydro Ottawa, but Hydro One's job in Ontario is to transmit electricity across the grid. And so this corridor that we have in our community is a transmission corridor owned by Hydro One. And as our city increases, the demand for electricity has gone up. And so they are looking at upgrading their infrastructure on a 13-kilometer stretch within Ottawa, which includes a significant stretch in River Ward. And they have to apply for permission for the Ontario Energy Board before they can proceed with their project. And some local community associations, including Ridgemont, were notified by Hydro One that this work would be undertaken at some point at the end of 2021. And some questions originally arose in Riverside Park. And the questions, in addition to, well, what will this work consist of? And what is the process for you to get permission? And there's an environmental assessment, a minor one that was required. There were also questions about, well, is the electromagnetic activity harmful to human health? And when you add additional capacity, will that be a detriment to human health? And the short answer to that is no. All the research that I've reviewed, that Hydro One's provided me, multiple meetings had with Hydro One, indicate very small levels of electromagnetic activity are being discharged. And the unit of measure that they were using is about 2,000 units. If you're exposed to, would be considered up to that safe. And the current lines release what's estimated to be about 16 units. So we've put together an information flyer. If we just go to the next slide. So this is an information bulletin that was sent to residents that abut the hydro corridor. So if you live on Kitchener, you should have got this. The condos at the end of Banff, homes along Banff-Ledbury, at the end of Ledbury, the condos, and a number of homes in Riverside Park all receive this. If you would like a copy, if you're just interested in this project and you'd like a copy, just email my office. We will email you a copy so you can have that. I have asked Hydro One to host a public meeting before construction starts, which is likely to be in the fall of 2021. They have agreed. And the project will simply provide people with information about what the construction will entail. How long is it? How noisy will it be? Will we be without power? Are you going to have heavy trucks in the neighborhood? All the questions that neighbors ask any large project. I want to connect neighbors with Hydro One. So it's hard for me to estimate when that will be, but it will be in the autumn at some point. But if you're interested about this project and you want to read more, reach out to my office. We will email this to you. Okay, next slide. So Petro-Canada, a few questions, certainly not a major development here, but Petro-Canada, they are staying. They still want to be part of our community. And they're simply upgrading their convenience store building and the pumps. And I think they got a little bit eager and maybe didn't fully comprehend all the approvals that were necessary. I know the city has asked them to upgrade the water infrastructure on their private property that connects with the line underneath Bank. That needed to be upgraded at their expense. And there were some other environmental requirements that they had to follow with the city. So even though a building permit was issued in 2019, they shut down the gas station in August of 2020. Demolition started on October the 5th, and that went fast, but then they ran into the, we haven't completed everything yet. So they're still in talks with the city of Ottawa to get the final authority to build, and then the building permits will be issued. So the Petro-Canada will remain in our community. It just, I can't give you a date when they're going to start and be reopened. Okay, the Aluabat Mosque School and Community Center. So again, a number of years ago, the Hydro Ottawa building was up for sale. They have moved to a new headquarters at the end of, I believe it's Hunt Club Road. And this was put on the market, and the Aluabat Mosque congregation, which were currently in Vanier, were bursting at the seams of their previous building and location, and needed a much larger location to facilitate their dream to have not just a mosque, but school and community center under one roof. So they have moved in. This is a very large building. I've been in this building at least twice now. It's massive, and they haven't fully opened all of the components yet that they were hoping to. So let me just read here. So the school renovations were completed last September. Plans for their mosque, banquet hall are, plans for their mosque and banquet hall are on hold due to the pandemic. They are currently providing both in-person and online programming, educational opportunities, and support services. And their school, which is from kindergarten to grade 8, currently has 180 to 200 students enrolled. In addition to the programs I mentioned, they provide senior supports, COVID information, counseling and support services for youth and other community members. And they do also offer programs for youth to prepare meals for people in need. So what are their goals in the immediate term? Their first goal this year is to survey their neighbors and community members about other needs that they may have. And in discussion about establishing an indoor soccer field and a women's fitness center that would be accessible to everyone in the area, with the goal of providing services that are affordable to low-income or minority groups. And they're also interested in creating a youth hub with a study area and library services. So great that they're in our community. I know when we had public meeting where the zoning was being debated, there were questions about whether this facility would be open to the public, that people would like to have certain recreation or programming more close to home. And it's good to see them moving in this direction because they've got a lot of space, and I'm sure with dialogue with the community, both sides can come to an outcome that will be quite satisfactory. So it's great. I'll just mention before we go to the next slide, one concern that was raised during those public discussions was about traffic, particularly on Kitchener. Not exclusively on Kitchener, but I know there are traffic concerns on Jasper and Banff as well. And the City of Ottawa, at my direction, did a number of traffic counts and both volume and speed counts on Kitchener in particular. Kitchener has a cut-through traffic problem. It's throughout the day, but particularly in the afternoon rush hour, coming from the east, heading west to Bank Street. And when the Hydro Ottawa employees left, obviously the volumes came down. And given that the mosque hasn't really come to full population yet, they haven't basically opened all the components that they would like to see in their building. We don't have the traffic volumes yet where they're concerned. So why am I raising this? Because I've always committed to the community and the community association that I am willing to engage in more permanent traffic calming initiatives for Kitchener in particular, should the volume come back up to the levels that we were previously experiencing. And that dialogue continues. We've always had a good relationship with the community as a whole in addressing traffic issues, traffic safety issues, and discussing what options that exist. I will say that my preference is not to go with a permanent fixture first, like a speed bump or a curb bulb out. I like to try the less invasive, more seasonal in nature initiatives first. They're cheaper. We test them out. If they don't work, then we talk about other options. But usually before the city would endorse a permanent feature, it needs to take volume data, it needs to take speed data. We need to understand if it's a chronic problem at all hours of the day, if it's something that happens at certain times of the day, and really pinpoint effort and resources there. So I love having this conversation because the issue exists throughout River Ward, and there are a number of options at our disposal as a community that we can work with together. So I just wanted to mention that. Okay, before I move on to Trillium Line, I do want to say that the official plan is also, there are a lot of reviews happening at the City of Ottawa this term. The official plan, the Transportation Master Plan, the Infrastructure Master Plan, Parks and Recreation Plan are sort of the big citywide, and there are a number of secondary initiatives happening as well. It's very busy. But the official plan is the giant blueprint that basically spells out development in the City of Ottawa. Every parcel of land in the city has a particular zoning classification to it. And there's a requirement on a cyclical basis to refresh your official plan. You need to make sure that there's a provincial requirement for municipalities to have a 15-year supply of land available to develop for residential purposes. So that has to be refreshed. But it's also good to look at trends and what's happening, population shifts, dwelling preferences. And the city has been engaged in an official plan review since 2019. It released some white papers to get people thinking about what we would like to focus on during this review. We had a very large discussion in 2020 about whether or not the urban boundary of the City of Ottawa, so not the city boundary, but the part of the city known as the urban boundary should be expanded to incorporate more development. So there was a big development with environmentalists and taxpayer groups and developers and community groups and organizations. Ultimately, the city agreed to expand the urban boundary a little bit. And there's been talk about 15-minute neighborhoods. What does a 15-minute neighborhood look like? It's basically from where you live, within a 15-minute walk, you should be able to get to shops and services without having to drive. And then earlier this year in 2021, the city after agreeing to expand the urban boundary last year, decided, okay, which parcels of land will then be selected to increase the urban boundary. So of course there was push and pull and debate on those parcels. At the end of 2020, at the end of November, the draft official plan was released, and it spells out in a large document sort of the vision of the official plan. And this is basically a year-long process. So the city isn't going to meet until at least September to sit down and debate this, but the plan that we have is going to be revised again. There's going to be a second version that's released later this year. Staff are thinking about either in June or August. I'd like to give as much time as possible between the release and the actual next meeting date for people to sink their teeth into, but it really is going to force the city to look at how this city in the next 30 years, which is projected to grow by 400,000 people, is going to accommodate that. We can't just say go to Constance Bay and go to Navan and go to Greeley and build there. It's how do you have a good balance? How do you have good dwelling types? And how do we do this responsibly, that's environmentally sound, that's good for taxpayers, but also preserves existing neighborhoods and respects existing neighborhoods and allows new development to come in that isn't evasive. And that's certainly where the debate's going to be over the next 6 months, is how that rolls out. So I know the Ridgemont Community Association at their meeting at the end of this month, I have facilitated folks from the planning department to come and speak. And maybe Norm, I'm sure Norm, you're going to talk when we get to Q&A, but I'll let you welcome the community to your meeting because I think there'll be a good discussion there, and we'll understand in depth how it's going to impact the Ridgemont, Banff, Ledbury communities as well. So on this note, I would like to switch to the Trillium Line update. We do have friends from the LRT Stage 2 team here with us tonight, I'm very happy with. We do have Michael Boissot, the Stakeholder Relations Officer with the Stage 2 South Extension. And accompanying him, we have Amanda Thompson, the Program Manager of Stakeholder Relations and Communications, and Theo Tetti, a Project Manager with Stage 2 Construction. And it's my understanding that they will focus on the new Walkley LRT station and the maintenance yard facility that's being built directly south of the Ridgemont community. So Michael, we will pass it over to you. Good evening to you.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. Great to see you, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Just let me share my screen here.
Okay.
Can everyone see that okay? It's up on the, okay. Thumbs up works as well. Sorry. So I want to thank Councillor Brockington's office for the invitation to come speak to you today as well, and as well to the members of the community for welcoming us. Basically today we're going to be talking about a very small subsection that of the Trillium Line South Extension that intersects with your community. So again, we have myself, we have Amanda Thompson and Theo Tetti, who are also here for some questions. If you have any at the end, please let us know. So again, we're talking about the O-Train South Extension. So it's a very large line. So it goes from Bayview in the north all the way down to Limebank in the south. So that's two new stations, which are Corso Italia and Walkley, which we'll be touching on today. And the extension of 5 of the existing platforms to be able to bring them up to the standards for the new line. So that's South Keys, Leitrim, Bowesville, and Limebank. And then there's 2 new stations along the 4-kilometer airport link, which is in blue there. So that's Uplands and Airports. And then it also includes the construction of the Walkley Yard Maintenance and Storage Facility, which is just between Walkley and Greenborough, off to the east of the alignment. So we'll be touching on Walkley Station and the Walkley Yards MSF today. So Walkley Station, it's off of Walkley Road. It's between the Transitway and a non-private, some of where the hotel is and the new developments that Councillor Brockington was talking about are going in. So the station will front onto Walkley Road just east of the transitway stations for the buses, and will consist of stairs and elevators coming down from Walkley at grade to go down to the station platform to catch trains. So at Walkley Station, there'll be one entrance onto Walkley Road. It'll be between the transitway and Anon's private there. There'll be two elevators, so they're redundant elevators, which is gives people the ability to choose how they'd like to get down to the station platform, and very accessible. They have the bus connections to and from the Walkley bus station locations, so the connectivity will be there as well. And we'll get the 20 bicycle parking spots. Again, goal here, connectivity. We want people to be able to bring their bike with them, park it, take the train, go back, get their bike, that kind of thing. Also, we'll have a passenger pickoff, kind of going through the design stage and a variation stage for a passenger pickup and drop off as well. So we might have updates with that going forward. So connectivity is a big thing for Walkley, and then whenever we do a presentation on these stations, we want to make it kind of known to people how they will access the station and get to and from the station. So from the Walkley bus stations, the passengers will be able to exit the bus at whichever of the Walkley stations that you get off of, either the local or the main transitway there. They'll make their way from that stop up to Walkley. You might already be at grade on Walkley, but some passengers might have to take the stairs. Passengers on the north side will be able to use the crosswalk to safely get to the south side to access that station. And of course, if you're on the south side already, then you're good to go. Passengers exiting a bus will need to tap their Presto card at the gates for proof of purchase, and you'll be able to access there because you have your proof of purchase from being on the bus. So again, we want to bring together the bus and the train to make it easier to get around the city. So passengers would then take those elevators or stairs that we're talking about down to the station platform. So from Walkley Road, it's basically the same thing. If you're a pedestrian or a cyclist and you're not getting off of a bus, same thing, you'll access off of Walkley Roads. The only difference there is that your Presto, you'll need it with you, but you'll need to actually pay at the gates because your transfer won't work. That's the only difference there. And then, of course, descend the stairs down and vice versa. Of course, arriving at Walkley Station, you would just do the opposite of all these things. So from a non-private, this is another accessibility and a nice kind of MUP pathway going in. So it'll be built and expanded to accessibility standards between the east side of the rail line and the west side of the existing buildings on a non-private. So that's the hotel and the one just south of that as well. Once it gets south of the condo building there, it's going to cut east along the south side of 5-5 Anand there. And that's what Councillor Brockington was saying earlier. It'll cut through to Anand, and then a MUP will eventually kind of connect that whole area. So the pathway will be extended along the back of that as well for the new buildings that are going in at 655 and 755 Anand. So that MUP there will be expanded to allow everyone to be able to access those buildings from that pathway. And then from there, private developers with agreements from the city will be building that multi-use pathway connecting from the pathway that we were just talking about there all the way to Bank Street. So that's really going to increase our connectivity for Walkley Station. You can kind of get to it from anywhere around there. So down the road, there's going to be separate sidewalk and cycle facilities along Walkley Road, but it's, again, we're looking down the road here. So I just want to kind of paint a big picture of what is coming in down the road that will improve connectivity and accessibility for the station. We're also looking, as Councillor Brockington was saying, as part of the complete streets reconfigurations for Bank Street, so we'll be looking at cycle tracks and all those different things that go with being a complete street to then give us another north-south connection to allow people to go up Bank Street and then access, either go across Walkley, or if you feel safer going down the MUP way when it's open, that is an option for you as well. Designs are also open. This is way down the roads, but there is additional entrances that are built in to the designs that they will be put in at a later date. We don't have a date for that or anything, but as growth occurs in the area as well, there is a provision to be able to stick in a second entrance that would be accessible off of that MUP from Anand. So as of right now, when it opens, you would have to take that MUP and you would go up the path it meets with Walkley Road, and then you'd take a left there and then access the station fare paid zone there. So this is just what we were talking about. It's a nice little illustration there. So what we're seeing with letter B there, so that's the path that runs along the buildings of a non-private, so that's the hotel there. And then you can see when it gets past the building just south of the hotel to the condos there, it cuts east, and then that will eventually be expanded to go all the way to Bank Street from the private developers. So that's just kind of a snapshot of your future down the road connectivity for this area there. So I thought it'd be better to give an illustration as well. So here's some images. Councillor Brockington had this on a nice title slide as well. This is the artistic representation of the Walkley station looking south from Walkley Road. So you can see what I'm talking about there. When I say you make your way down Walkley, you enter the fare paid zone, which is the gates there, and then you can go through, and there's elevators to go down, and there's also a staircase, and you can see the train coming in there. This is what it looks like right now. So this is from the same view coming from looking south off of Walkley Road. You'll notice there's almost like a roof going in at the back. Just ignore that. That's the other development. So that's not our station. So we're looking down basically at Walkley right now. We have that the pit where the station will end up. We have forming walls going in, and we'll get to that, but you can kind of see it's in the very early stages here, and we're just kind of getting mobilized on that and doing some things. So we're going to see if this works. I have decent internet, we'll say, so we'll see if this will go, but this is just a little drone video of a flyover. This is starting from the south end, heading north. You can see that long area here. This is where the station's going in here. So you can see the form walls that have been put up. And again, it's a lot of things at grade and below grade for utilities and things like that have gone in at the moment. So what's happened so far, the platform footings are in, you can see those there, and then they've had to build a crane pad to actually put the crane on to then go to the next stage for all that. So that's complete at the moment, and they've done the piles for the actual shoring wall to hold the forms for it. So they're doing the form work for the footing walls. The rebar placements is nearing completion there. So again, it's a lot of that form work that will later have actual station work going on top of it, and I can have Theo answer any questions on that he'd like. So in the near future, we'll have complete construction of that shoring wall. Again, we got to relocate things like water mains and utilities. So a lot of the initial work at stations is stuff like that. So relocation of the water main, got to complete the forming walls, and the duct banks and the platform area still have to go in. So we're looking for a rough timeline here looking forward. Construction activities all the way through the year. It's going to be built up in certain like small increments throughout the entire year. The station platforms expected this summer at some points, and then we'll kind of go up from there. So the platform is what you'll see in that area. We could see where the almost pit was, where the long area with the walls are. That will be the location of the station platform, expected sometime this summer, subject to change if things happen. But so completion of the station is expected next spring. So we're looking at about a year ahead at this point. So it is one of the stations that was scheduled to start like last, I believe, out of all of them. It's certainly near the end of the scheduled stations to start. So that's why you're looking, and you might notice it doesn't look like a whole lot at the moment. That will change this year, and it will start looking like more and more as we go along. So the impacts, we have a lot of just truck traffic going around. As you can see, there's diggers, there's excavators, there's going to be trucks in and out hauling. That generally just brings impacts for increased truck traffic around the area for streets, trying to access the site, but also just noise from moving around. But it's at the moment not it's not drilling, it's not any of the big impact things that we have on other sections at the moment. So we'll keep you posted if it does anticipate to have more impacts going forward. So that brings me to a second location, which is the Walkley MSF, which is the maintenance and storage facility. So this is east of the rail line between Walkley Station and Greenboro. It's off of the Walkley rail corridor there. It has it kick off to the side, and then the trains exit the main line there and go down the MSF line. So the vehicles on the south extension will be cleaned, inspected, maintained, washed, stored. It's basically everything you need to do to trains to keep them operational will be conducted from Walkley MSF. And then there's another facility being built to perform maintenance on the new Stadler flirts that we're getting procured to support this extension, and then as well as the existing 6 trains that we already have that are Alstom Karadia Link trains. So at the MSF, it is much more further along than the Walkley station is itself. So the foundation work's done, the exterior envelope work is complete. So we're going to take you inside here in a few minutes and show you some photos of what's been going on, because the shell of the building's been up for a while, so it might look like there's not much actually going on, but that's because it's interior mostly. So we got slab pours for the floor on the insides. We've got the mechanical stuff going in and masonry walls. And at this point, the structure's up. You're going to get a lot of concrete pouring, vehicles, and again hauling here and there. But just general truck traffic noise. It's nothing, and we'll let you know if it is. But there's no planned very high noise and vibration impactful work coming up at this location, and we'll let you know, of course, if there is. And as I said, so this is what it looks like from above. This is the last time that they've given us an update for the exterior, because most of the things that are going on are on the interior. They have, I believe, finished a few of more of the walls on this closest end to us here. This is what's going on inside. So we got rebar going down for pouring concrete slab flooring. So it's got rebar across the entire flooring, and then you fill in with concrete. You can see the crew at the back there is performing that, which is the next picture here. So that's the slab flooring being poured in. You can see it's mostly closed in, the actual physical building itself, but it still has some tarp. So most of the work going on is on the inside. A good concrete pour here. So onto the right is mechanical and electrical rooms that will be presumably to do any mechanical and electrical work that needs to be done at the MSF. So that's on the right, and to the left is a maintenance pit. So the train will come in, and you can see it's a little bit below grade, and then work will be done. Whatever needs to be done will be done in that pit there. There we go. That's a little bit closer for the maintenance pits there. You can see it's a little bit low. And this is what we're looking at the final. So you can see it's got most of the walls up that we're looking to have at the end, but it has a few more kind of enclosures to put up on the walls, but most of the work's going on the inside, yeah. So that was our presentation on those 2 locations. And if you do have any questions, again, I'm sure it's being recorded a couple different ways, but we will get back to you. And if we aren't able to answer it immediately, happily answer either through your own personal contact or through the counselor's office. Either way, I'd be happy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. And I asked you to present at the end so that we could take questions specifically for the LRT team first. So if members of the community who are in attendance now would like to ask questions specifically about the LRT first, let's deal with those so the LRT team can leave when we're done, and then we'll open it up to any other questions. So for Walkley Station or the maintenance yard, if you want to raise your hand either electronically or physically, we'll go straight to you if you have any questions. Yes, Gary. Gary will need to be unmuted.
Okay.
Just give me a second.
Okay,
unmuted.
how's that?
Gary, you're up. Lee, you're next, or Leith.
Okay. I'm on?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, so my question is, I noticed that there's large styrofoam blocks that were being at the the Greenboro station. Is this going to be the same thing that they're going to be doing at Walkley Station? And is this because it stops heaving and stuff like this, or do you know anything about that?
That's a great question. I will kick to Theo Teddy, who's on for construction side. Honestly, not entirely sure. So that's why we have Theo.
Yeah, I'll take that, Michael. So it's the styrofoam blocks are just they're engineered for ground condition. So between Greenboro and South Keys, the ground there, it's probably clay and then not stable enough. So we're using that to stabilize the track bed. But at Walkley, a bit of that will be done at certain sections where we have that ground condition as well.
Thank you.
Gary, is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, Leith Higdon, go ahead.
Thank you, Michael. My name is Patrick. I'm Leith's husband. Question is, how is the city approaching intensification around transit stations and hubs? And not necessarily not for the Walkley station, but in general, is the city starting to do transit-oriented development above its planned stations? Thank you very much. Oh, and I'm sorry, Riley, maybe tying this in to my question on Section 37s of any sort of development around transit hubs and transit corridors. Thank you.
So I know the city has stated that it's a goal of ours to intensify and build around the people, right? Because you want the most amount of people to be able to to get on the train. Obviously, it's by case and what we can actually do with developments, but it is something. I don't know, Councillor Brockington, if you have anything to add to that, but I know it's a priority to get people or to get the train as close to as many people as possible, and an easy way to do that is intensify right beside it.
Yeah, originally the inclusionary zoning was going to be more widespread. Now it's really focused within I don't know if it's still 750 meter radius of major transit stations. The City of Ottawa strongly endorses this and supports this. We do want, as part of the official plan, to, I think, more smartly evolve. I'm, Patrick, also want to be more picky about dwelling type. So if you go to Westboro and $1 million condo towers get built around Westboro Station, we are inclined to say, great, but millionaire condo owners don't take public transit. So there are dwelling types that can yield much greater transit use than others. And so I want to go that extra mile and think about, okay, how can we not only put towers around transit, but knowing that certain dwellings will yield greater transit riders. So that's what I want to push for. When the owner of Anand Private came back to me, because this was approved before I came to office, when they came back in 2019, it was for a site plan reapplication because they wanted to increase the height of the towers by, I think it's 1 floor only. They're capped at, is it 19 floors? Anyway, they're building at the capacity because of the airport. I said, look, you're right beside Walkley Station. Pitch me an idea that's 24 stories, 26 stories, because other than the one condo building beside you, this is the location we want to build big at. But he's capped because of the airport. So even though we got one additional level on the towers, what's new is that 6-story podium in the middle. So we are getting a net increase there. So great question. Okay, Judy, I see your hand up.
Just unmuted you, Judy. Go ahead.
I think you muted her when you unmuted her. There we go.
My question is, has any consideration been given to parking? If people living in east of Bank don't want to take the bus to the station, but would rather drive, there's nowhere to park except in Elwood.
Sorry, I think I just went off there. Yeah, can you hear me okay? Okay. Theo, is there any plans for extra parking at the back there? I haven't heard of any.
No,
again,
there are no plans there now.
Yeah, so this is one of those, I would say that the thoughts have been to get as many people who are around the station who are in walking distance to get there in the easiest way fashion. And again, whether you take a bike or you take a just your legs, getting that's the priority, I'd say. And I hear you with the people need to drive sometimes to get to the train as well, and that's difficult. I don't honestly have any update for any additional parking at Walkley, unfortunately.
Judy, the best.
Oh, sorry,
best,
Councillor.
yeah. Did you want to raise Greenboro?
I was just going to raise the park and ride at Greenboro, yes.
Go ahead, Amanda.
So as you probably know, there is a park and ride at the Greenboro station, and that will continue to exist. So if somebody is choosing that they really want to drive to the station, then that's certainly going to be an opportunity.
Okay. So I see Gary's hand. Gary on LRT. Someone will need to unmute.
There we go. That's my fault. Okay. The Greenboro station is full to capacity all the time, and it actually spills out over to the parking area near the bank, and it's not good.
Agreed. Yes, there's certainly the park and ride at Greenboro is almost always full when pre-COVID. So part of the usage at that park and ride is residents much further south, so Finley Creek, Riverside South, driving up and trying to get on transit there. So because the Trillium line is being extended much further south into those communities, and there are actually very large park and rides being built further down the alignment, the plan is that those people in those suburban neighborhoods will go to the park and rides in their community and get on the trains there.
Thank you for the question, Gary. Melissa, I see your hand up.
Hi, so it's actually touching on what Gary had mentioned. Is there a plan to have the park and ride situation at Greenboro reviewed once the line is open to have, in case there is still an issue with it being overly full?
That's a great question. I don't know the answer off the top of my head, but certainly I can take that back and speak to my colleagues at OC Transpo.
Thank you.
And Amanda, I think that OC has tried in the past to work with RioCan on the South Keys Mall. I loathe seeing these massive malls that are full 2 weeks a year, Christmas and then maybe Easter. Some of you may know that a secondary plan for the South Keys Mall was approved about 4 years ago. Part of the mall is slated to be torn down despite its young age and towers built along Bank Street. I would hope at that time, if we still have challenges with the Greenboro parking lot, there may be opportunities to acquire more space there. But I think Amanda's on the right track, Amanda Thompson, that if South Enders are coming all the way to Greenboro to park, because that's their first opportunity, and then get on the Transitway or the O train to get downtown, that will be alleviated when the Beausville massive parking lot is opened. I expect there'll be some, a number of cars, vehicles going there. So it's a great question. We'll look into it as well. But yeah, I mean, I don't mind people driving to transit if they're coming from areas that are not served by transit and they're trying to get to the local rapid transit station, then these park and rides make sense to me. And even look, I don't want to take away, there could be reasons why people in our community need to drive, fair enough. And if you need a space, then I think it's a fair ask as well. So thank you. Okay, Patrick or Leith, who's up?
Leith, can you try unmuting yourself?
There you go.
There you go.
Okay, thank you. So good last mile discussion and the importance of that last mile to transit hubs. I hear there's a lot of multimodal options for the Walkley station. where is the city on sort of things such as leveraging either Ubers or maybe mass as a service, mass mobility as a service, and more the payment options of multimodal through Preston cards?
That's something I don't know off the top of my head. For partnering with Uber, I imagine that'd be something that you could go forward with if again there's things that are added to the station, like the passenger pickup and drop off. That could be something that could maybe be again talked to with private companies to figure it out, because you're not going to drop them off on Walkley. So I'm assuming, I don't know if we have had any talks. Amanda, if you have any other background on that.
Well, that's a great question, first of all, and there is work happening at OC Transpo about that. I think Councillor Brockenden, I'm not sure if you want to add something on that, because there was a discussion about that just this week at Transit Commission. Unfortunately, it's not an area I work in a lot, so I don't have details on it right now.
You know, OC Transpo is very much aware of sort of the last mile. So if people don't know what this means, it just means you've traveled most of your way on public transit. The transit line ends, and you still have a journey to go before you get home. And we saw this with the pilot project for the e-scooters, that even though it was more or less in the downtown core, there's the people who answered the survey saying, listen, this was great, but we need this in the suburbs. We need this in the urban wards as well. And we do see Uber at the end of the LRT line or even the Transitway line waiting, or taxis, because they know people need to get in. If it's, you know, late at night when the local routes have ended, there's still a demand for this service. So there's nothing formal yet, but there's at least a realization that this service is needed. And I do think going forward, especially with shared economy, that there are going to be multiple opportunities to go. So it's another great question. Thank you. I'll just say that on Walkley Road, there is a, which I've tried hard to get, a kiss and ride that will be built. Right now on Walkley Road, there's no opportunity to safely pull over and drop your passenger or passengers off to get to the bus station. So on the south side of Walkley, in front of the new LRT station, there will be a 3-car pullover lane where you can get out of the flow of traffic and allow your passenger or passengers to hop out. So the main challenge on these bridges is width, especially closer to Bank Street. Yes, there's a median. If you're coming from the west, there's a fairly wide median, but then that shrinks in size. But that was one of my main asks on that. To Michael's earlier comment, there are bike lane plans for Walkley Road between Bank and Riverside. We're still a few years away, but that is being looked at. And there's so much work going along that corridor that it won't be built until some of the major things are completed. So I'm going to thank Michael, Amanda, and Theo for the presentation tonight on the LRT Walkley Station and the maintenance yard. I'm going to transition now to the other. I see a late hand, Judy. Are you trying to squeak that in? Judy Lipsy?
Just give me a second.
All right. Judy, you're unmuted. Did you have a last minute question?
No, I was just saying thank you.
Okay, all right.
Clapping my hands.
Thank you. Clapping is allowed. Questions are too, but sorry, Michael, Amanda, and Theo, thank you very much for giving us some of your time tonight. We, as the community, are very much looking forward to having an LRT connection in our community. It will be very good for public transit and it'll improve connectivity and travel times to downtown and on the main Confed line. So thank you for your update and joining us tonight. So thank you.
Thanks for having us. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome to stay, and you're also welcome to go on and do other things. So thank you.
A couple questions, Councillor. I'll see that.
Thank you. Okay, Aaron McCracken, do you want to go through the questions that were submitted in the chat function and just read them out one by one? And we'll go through the questions in the chat, and if people want to ask their questions, we'll go to those. So I think there's about 5 or 6 questions. So Aaron, number 1.
Would it be possible to have the Ledbury Albion area of Clifford Allen Park reclaimed for public use and benefit this summer? For example, mowed paths, pilot allotment garden, garbage pails, etc.
So few people know that the green space south of Kitchener Avenue at Albion is called Clifford Allen Park. It has an old remnants of a baseball diamond there. And there's a recent request, or there's been requests over the years, first a dog park to make it at least manicured and available for the public. When I came to office, the city's plans were to build a soccer pitch facility with 6 high-end soccer pitches that would occupy all of the city land in that area. That idea was dropped when the LRT Phase 2 was approved, because the city then wanted to move it right beside the Beausville LRT station. Apparently that's not going forward. So we have a very large park that sort of borders the hydro corridor that is not really doing anything. I'm open to that, but it's just not part of the city's beat as far as parks that receive the same amount of attention that other parks do. So I think the best thing is for us just to connect offline and talk about, I think you've written to my office, so I appreciate the question. Aaron, number 2.
Is there a plan to connect both sides of Albion through the train tracks?
The short answer is no. So again, Albion Road North and South are stopped by the train tracks. There's no plan to build a bridge over the train tracks. This question does come up every time development in the area is going on. My colleague to the south is adamantly opposed to any creation of a bridge because the traffic would come into her community. And it's just not something that's on the books. It's not financially feasible. It's not part of the transportation master plan. Yeah, it'd be quicker to get to the south end instead of going around and going down Bank Street, but that's not on any plans at this time.
Are there any plans for a multi-use path along the hydro lines between Albion and Conroy, similar to what you see along Hunt Club between Greenbank and Woodruff?
Yeah, that's a nice one. So my recent discussions with Hydro One, I'm trying to squeeze whatever I can get out of them. I've raised pollinator gardens, public access. I loathe seeing all this property not used. I realize there's a high transmission wires right above us. But there are opportunities here. And I met the CEO last year. He came to a conference and I asked him point blank, I said, you own so much land. What are the opportunities for public paths, pollinator gardens, community gardens? And my more recent conversations with them on their project, I'm like, well, you're coming into my community. I've got to be able to squeeze something out of you. And those questions came up again. They're open to the conversation, but they're not going to pay for it. They want the city to come up with a plan. They want the city to come up with funding. And so while the city and even I could finance community gardens that abut a roadway so people can have access to get in there, any type of pathway would require, I think, some significant conversation with the city, Hydro One, and the community. So I'm very much open to the idea, just knowing it would be difficult to finance. So if people are serious and you want to sort of sit down with me and talk about from where to where, then I'm open to that conversation. So whoever asked that, I'm willing to sit down and have that chat.
So there's a comment, when traffic volume is low, that's when cars tend to speed because the road is clear in front of them. Speed is an issue on Jasper currently.
Yeah. So no disagreement. Even though the traffic volumes have plummeted with COVID, the speeds are up. People see wide open streets and thinking it's the Indianapolis 500. Jasper had flex stakes installed last year for the first time. There was some pushback in the community at one of the locations and demanding it be removed. I held my own and it was maintained, but looking at making a tweak this year on that location. As I said earlier, I would like to have the city get some readings done this spring and summer on volume and speed and talk about options. People either love traffic calming that I put in or they hate it, and there's no middle ground. They either really like the fact that we're trying to slow traffic down in residential neighborhoods, or they think it's the worst thing ever. Doesn't seem to be in a middle ground. So we've tried multiple things on Kitchener. I hear you loud and clear on Jasper, and I'm very open to this, and I have a budget for this and I want to spend it because I strongly believe that residential communities, we should be driving slow and vulnerable road users get the priority over cars. So I'm willing to work with you in that regard.
The land south of Kitchener and west of Albion is zoned recreational. Are there any plans in the works for that space?
No. Again, I just explained to the long-term plans where the park, the soccer pitch park, and those have been shelved. So the city has green space here. My worry is at some point the city will say, oh, it's probably worth $3 million. Let's sell it and build, put on the open market. But I think if, the Ridgemont community, the Banff-Ledbury community see this green space and would like to see something done with it, that's where we come together, form a working group that we focus on parks, rec, community service, and how we can better use that land. So I don't have answers for you tonight. Certainly I have ideas, but if we've got ideas for an unutilized piece of public property that the community can get benefit out of, then let's sit down and have that conversation.
The next question is regarding section 37. I believe you touched on that, but I'll just repeat it. Has this board leveraged section 37 on new development to pay for added public benefit in the board?
Never. Section 37, I actually don't know too well, but when a development exceeds what it is permitted to build by a significant amount in height, then as a trade-off for that, it's called section 37, and there's a financial or a monetary contribution that the developer has to pay to the community, and it's managed by the ward councillor. And I think it's fairly open on how that money can be spent. And I'm actually in discussions right now about section 37 for a project just outside River Ward in the far west end. And I want to cut because these folks are going to come to the local community center and park, which is in River Ward. Therefore, some of that money should be invested in it. So most developments in River Ward, some have been tall, they haven't exceeded what was permitted by leaps and bounds. So we've never qualified. We ask every time there's something tall, I say, can this qualify? We just haven't been there yet. I don't know what the gap or what the delta is.
The next question, how will traffic be impacted when the mosque, school, and community center officially open up? There's still a lot of traffic passing through Kitchener Avenue. Speed is a huge concern with a school being situated on that residential street.
Yeah, there are a number of streets in the community that are a concern. Kitchener definitely is one of them. There have been a number of traffic calming initiatives over the years. As you know, we've got speed display board, the flex stakes, there's painted messaging. I put the no turn restriction at Bank between 3:30 and 5:30. The city has measured volumes and speed. It is believed when the mosque is fully utilized with a mosque community center and school, we're going to have a lot more traffic. And my commitment has and will continue to be, we will measure that increase when they're fully populated. And I am very much open, and Norm can back me up. We've had some significant multiple discussions at the Community Association about Kitchener. And I'm ready to implement some more permanent calming initiatives when warranted. So we're not there yet. If you're going to think about some, I think, pretty serious initiatives, you have to make a strong case to the community when you are at your limit for volume. We're not there yet. But that's a conversation that will continue to happen. But Jasper needs some love as well. And I know Banff needs to be repaved, but Banff is another north-south main road, and it also goes all the way down into Banff-Ledbury, where you have a very high concentration of children. So in working with that community, we put a speed display board up going southbound, painted messaging. But the concern is you're coming downhill into the Banff-Ledbury community, and we've got to slow cars down there as well. We've got Ledbury Park. So residential speeds have always been an issue, and I work with you on what you'd like to see and what's a reasonable traffic calming initiative to proceed with. But I have no trouble spending that budget that I have for traffic calming because I believe so strongly in it.
The next question is, there is an office space and warehouse space for lease at 325 Albion Road, which is very close to Walkley. Any update on this would be appreciated.
I don't know the property, and I don't know what the intent is. I've noted the address. We'll follow up and we'll get you the answer.
The next question is, what's happening with the Hakeem Optical building? There's starting to be graffiti on the side of the building, and hopefully it doesn't look bad eventually.
Yeah, let's not wait for anything to get out of control. Graffiti needs to be called in. Call 311. The owner must clean that up. We don't want our buildings to become abandoned and neglected. The Hakeem Optical building is for sale. I don't know if this will be bought and intended to be for retail or whether there are greater intentions. It's not a massive property. It's not like you can put a massive tower on that footprint. But anything related to neglect, piles of garbage, weeds, graffiti, broken windows, if it's not being fixed, call 311, call my office, and we will put pressure on the owner to clean that up.
What is the plan regarding encouraging more accessible housing in our neighborhood?
Well, regrettably, the city doesn't have a lot of tools. The city builds affordable housing, but not to, 95+% of all housing in the city of Ottawa that's built in any given year is from the private sector. And there's no legal requirement yet for the private sector to build affordable housing. Some of my colleagues who are open to taller buildings will make deals with developers and say, oh, you've come to me today and you've asked for 18 stories. Why don't we go to 24, but you guarantee 5 floors of affordable housing. You guarantee me that you're going to reserve 15% of your total units for affordable housing. So there's definitely a push to get density and affordable housing near transit stations. We have declared a housing and homelessness emergency in this city. We're trying to work with the feds, the provincial government for funds, but also to leverage public property. So levels of government may be unable to give large sums of money, but we all own land. And so the city's identified lands. We've just made the announcement about a new OCH development near Gladstone Station that was in the news last week. But we need to keep pushing more. Housing is very expensive to buy, as you know, but also to rent. You know, I'm a dad with 2 kids. My fear is my girls won't be able to afford to buy a home in the city 10 years from now when they're ready to live in Ottawa, be a homeowner, because it's so darn expensive. That's certainly top priority for the city.
There's a comment, the traffic control and speed issues need to be addressed in our neighborhood of Ridgemont. It's a huge concern. Kitchener Avenue is the worst.
Yeah, I mean, again, if folks who have not been privy to the multiple conversations we've had at the community association, you're welcome to come to that at the end of the month. You can reach out to me, and we can talk about not just what's been done, but the current problems that exist now. And I am hesitant to spend big money now in absence of a conversation on what to do once the mosque reaches full capacity and we have post-COVID traffic patterns back. So like speed bumps are $10,000 each. If the expectation is Kitchener is going to have 4 speed bumps, that's my entire annual budget for the entire ward on one street. And I'm not disagreeing that Kitchener needs more calming. It does. But I want to sit down with folks and talk about realistic expectations. Yes, the city's done a lot. I've done a lot, but we continue to have these issues. And there's sort of a finite number of options that are left for us to consider. So if folks want to reach out to me who I haven't had the chance yet to chat with about Kitchener, I'd be happy to have that conversation.
There are also comments regarding speeding on Surrey. Lots of people cutting through the street to avoid traffic at the lights. And a follow-up to the Kitchener speeding, the commenter noted that it's happening with people picking up their children from the local schools.
Okay. I'm not sure what else I can add to what I've already said. If folks we're obviously, Aaron, you know who's sent those comments. We have everyone's email who's registered tonight. So I will proactively reach out to those who are raising this with me. We'll talk about what you're observing on your street or streets in the area, what you think would be best, and we'll go from there. Ultimately, I would like to direct a total discussion through the community association. That's sort of where we have a general conversation about issues in the neighborhood, where we've shuttled discussions about traffic calming. I bring my plan for traffic calming annually to community associations across the ward to get their buy-in, to make sure I'm not missing issues before I spend the money. But I'll reach out and we can have that discussion, further discussion for sure.
Here's a note regarding the multi-use pathway. The commenter thought they saw that the NCC was going to build a multi-use path on the hydro path between Conroy and the water. It was in the National Capital Pathway Plan. And the question is, did we also tap the Canada Healthy Communities Initiative for funding?
I'm not familiar with that initiative. I would be, I have a contact at the NCC I can reach out to and say, hey, how did you guys work with Hydro One on this initiative? You know, share with me the best practices that I can replicate and go from there. So I don't doubt there are examples locally or even province-wide where hydro corridors are used for public use. I just need to find out how they did that. The fact the Hydro One says, yeah, we're open to the conversation, good. Step one, we don't have to twist their arms, but things are expensive and they want to make sure that folks who are pursuing this have funds to make it work. So they're willing to give the land, that's great, but we can follow up with the NCC.
Someone expressed concern regarding infrastructure maintenance on all neighborhood streets, particularly noting Banff Avenue and the amount of potholes.
Yes, I joke. This is only a joke, my friends. That's my new traffic calming initiative for Banff Street. The potholes slow us all down. It's a bad shape. I refer to streets like Banff as jigsaw puzzles because they are in such poor shape. This has been raised with me. Let me explain to you the city's strategy. So again, using the 95% example, 95% of all road resurfacing or repaving budgets go to arterial roads, the big roads that shuttle 30, 40, 50,000 cars a day pre-COVID. They are the roads where you drive faster legally, and they are the roads that shuttle significantly more cars. And the city has told me it's about 3 years to get all arterial roads up to par. I've had good success in River Ward, Hunt Club, Riverside, Walkley, Fisher, Baseline have been done. Hunt Club from Paul Anka to the Airport Parkway is going to be done this summer. Riverside between Walkley and Ridgewood is being done this summer. Fisher between Meadowlands and Prince of Wales is being done. I get so choked up about this. Is being done this summer. So arterial roads is the main focus. Then staff have said, now listen, once we knock off these major roads, we are going to be able to focus on the residential streets that need it badly. And I'm still not satisfied in that regard, because there are a number of streets. I think there's about a dozen streets in our ward that are, in my opinion, poor shape. And I put Banff in that category. There's a separate pot of money that not only does pothole repair, but it does patches. And so my strategy this year with staff is to identify sections of Banff Avenue that are in bad shape, take pictures, say it's between this house and this house, and say, now listen, rather than pave the entire 400 meters between Walkley and Kitchener, I need you to do these sections. And so that's sort of my strategy, my focus strategy over the next year or so, is if we can't get the street repaved, because those funds are going to for the major arterials that are in bad shape, then let's identify and fix, the worst of the worst sections. That gives us some temporary relief. It will not knock us off the list for when the street has to get repaved, but that's what I have to do, is try and give you some comfort and relief on those really bad sections, have them carve that out and repave that. And they did do that a couple of years ago. There were some patches on Banff, but I know how bad it is. It's on my top list, and my job is to push staff hard and get some work done if we can this summer.
There is a comment regarding parking for the LRT. So that is a concern because people will park at the neighborhoods close to the Walkley Road Transit Way. It currently happens at the Value Village Shopping Plaza parking lot.
Yeah, I don't know what else to say. That there is no parking planned for Walkley. There's no space. There's no surplus space at all. I do believe that there will be spaces that become available at Greenboro Station, but as far as our transit stations, there isn't a plan to provide parking at every station to begin with. So I'm not saying that what has been stated about Value Village is wrong. I'm sure people do park there, but there's just no plan for parking.
There are some other comments regarding cut through traffic and some traffic calming measures, but if, with your permission, I will go to some additional questions or?
Yes, yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. There is an expression of concern regarding the medical centers on Bank Street and patients parking on Surrey, Brookline, and behind the, or on Brookline behind the Petro-Canada property, and also on Fox Bar and Vancouver. what would be done about that?
Well, it's my understanding that every block between Bank and Banff has no parking restrictions on it. I think it's weekdays. Norm, you can shake your head if that's not correct, but it's as a result of community input before I was elected, these restrictions were implemented. And that was to ensure that we didn't have commercial infiltration in our community. We don't want commercial built in the community, but we don't want spillover traffic. There should be sufficient parking provided by these businesses to begin with. So if people are not adhering to the posted parking restrictions, we call 311. 311 will create a service request for Ottawa bylaw, and they will come out. And if there's a developed pattern, what I can reinforce with bylaws is, listen, you've got posted no parking. We consistently have this problem. I need this on the beat. So bylaw will come and do one-off enforcement based on one phone call. But if we say consistently there's a problem, they will put it on their beat for, let's say, 2 weeks, and they'll be there daily. And they'll do that type of verification. So if people aren't adhering, call 311. If you're not getting satisfaction, call my office.
Okay, sorry, just flipped up. With regards to the Bank Street rejuvenation, are there plans to encourage less or fewer empty buildings? There are many eyesores on the street.
So the short answer is no. The Bank Street redesign is about how the sidewalk, multi-use pathway, sidewalk, bike lane, and the road gets redesigned. However, I'm a huge fan of, reaching out to property owners and having a discussion about, hey, your building is underutilized, or you've got lots of land. Are you thinking long-term? What are you thinking about for your property? Again, this is a community you live in, but Bank Street needs some love. It's not the most fun, enjoyable street to walk on. I was out there last week with city staff and the consultant. It was very cold that day. I've been on the street hundreds of times in my life. I could not believe how fast the traffic was. We were stopped on the sidewalk where the Pizza Hut is, and the traffic at 10:30 in the morning was just whizzing by. And how can I, in good conscience, ask you to bike with your family on Bike Street, or even yourself commuting? I can't do that. But Norm and I have had conversations about sort of his theories about development in the future along this corridor. I've asked the same question. I said, staff, what do you think is going to happen once Bank Street's beautified? Do you think shops will turn over? Yes, probably not at the pace or the speed of the Glebe or Old Ottawa South, but there are some aged properties in our immediate community, and I think they're with the LRT station opening up, you will see some pressure. People have theories that the Value Village Mall is prime for redevelopment, that is a ticking opportunity for something. I love Ruby Inn, so I will be heartbroken if that restaurant leaves. But again, you look at malls with all this space. South Keys will be redeveloped. I look at Billings Bridge, which has been around, Ottawa's second oldest mall, and I look at all that space with a transit station there, and thinking the owners are not maximizing what they can get. I'm not saying tear down the mall. I'm just saying you can build along the periphery of the property and still have a shopping mall there, but get much better bang for your buck. So, no, I mean, this is something I want to do on Maryville Road in Carlington, is sit down with some of the strip mall owners and say, politely say, what are you thinking about your property? How can we build a 4 to 6 story building, keep ground floor retail, offer retail the community actually wants, and bring new people in for a corridor that's been completely underutilized? So I'm willing to have those conversations.
So this one is also related to speeding and parking. But the commenter is asking if it's possible to have more active enforcement regarding those issues in the neighborhood.
Yeah, what I asked of you is try and give me a trend. Is it weekday afternoons that you see a problem? Is it weekday mornings? Is it consistently at the same time or same day? Give me that data, that's very important. Getting bylaw out is fairly easy. If I need to speak to the chief of Ottawa bylaw, I say I have a problem, I need you to send guys out, they'll do it. Getting reaction from the police is a lot more challenging. They ask us to go online to file service requests. They want that data to be compiled. They provide resources to communities where volumes, service request volumes are high. It's a lot more challenging. But there is, we get reaction from the police in numbers. So you can either file online or use a phone number, which I can provide you after tonight, where if you need to file a service request for something basic like service, people are running stop signs, there's speed in my neighborhood, you can file that. And they're the ones that ask for, is it a certain time of day? Like if we're going to send an officer to sit, we want to know, well, if it's 30 minutes after school lets out, then that's the perfect time to send that person to do some enforcement.
I believe this is the last question. They would like to know why Vancouver Avenue received new water sewers and new asphalt pavement.
Well, my understanding is because the underground water infrastructure needed to be replaced. This was a project I inherited when I was elected. It was queued up. And I think just coming to the end, my first year in office. I don't know, Norm, if you have more, but the city, the city will not spend the millions of dollars needed to replace water infrastructure unless it's needed. They know the age of the infrastructure. There is a cyclical inspection of the pipes where they send cameras down across the city, and they are able to estimate the longevity of these pipes. And my understanding was there were issues and it had to be replaced. So that's the answer. If you have a question about the infrastructure on your street, send me an email and I can get that information. It's pretty straightforward about what the state of the infrastructure is under your street and what the estimated timelines are by the city to replace it. I just saw a note from Gary. Are you getting the more recent, Aaron, the most recent questions?
Yeah, so I can link that back to a previous comment regarding driving schools. I'm just scrolling. Thank you for your patience. There are a lot of driving school cars driving through our community. They've been observed and photographed, several in a row. And that links down to the last two comments that driving schools shouldn't be in our neighborhood, and that I thought driving schools were asked not to practice in our neighborhood streets anymore, but that we're seeing them again.
Okay, so yes, there's a bylaw on the books that prohibits driving schools from coming in the Ridgemont community. There is a geographic boundary that has been established. And my understanding is once a year, Ottawa bylaw informs driving schools because I think they have to be relicensed. So there's an annual requirement for the city and the driving schools to communicate where they're reminded that they are prohibited from entering this community. Now, I'm not going to suggest for 1 second that that's adhered to by every driving school. I've seen them with my own eyes. And so if there's a particular company that is a frequent offender, let me know. If you're seeing multiple companies, then I will reach out to Ottawa bylaw and say, the message doesn't seem to be getting through, because what I'm hearing from my community is that we are being infiltrated by these companies. So There's no law saying if, you know, the driver is going home at night and he's driving through the community. That's actually okay. They can't be actively teaching and practicing in your community. And that's basically two people in the car, right? Person learning to drive and the instructor sitting in the passenger side. That is prohibited. So I think from Gary's hard head shaking, yes, it's multiple companies. So I will take a note of that and circle back with Ottawa Violet.
And
Have
there is a question from Melissa.
Yes.
With regards to the infrastructure on the streets, I don't know about anybody else, but I received notice in the mail regarding insurance around the sewer lines, and I getting a lot of conflicting information. CBC did a report on it. There's threads on Reddit. What's going on? The City of Ottawa's letterhead is on it. Can you give us a little feedback about that?
Absolutely. Great question. Thank you, Melissa. Okay. The City of Ottawa, and I can't remember this, but in 2016, the City of Ottawa agreed to partner with this company. And I don't know the full extent, but this is not a scam. The company was permitted to offer insurance service and insurance coverage to homeowners and use the City of Ottawa's logo as part of their promotion to indicate that there's a partnership or at least an endorsement. In retrospect, I don't think it's right, but we are where we are now. I highly recommend to people that if you are considering acquiring additional coverage from the existing insurance package you have now, that you contact your current insurance provider to have a discussion. Hey, does my current package cover me? What are the levels of risk? Should I get this? The private line, the water line and sewer line that goes from your house to the main city line that's on your property is your responsibility. You own it and you are responsible to replace it if it's damaged or if it needs to be replaced due to age. And some people think they're covered. Some people think it's the city's responsibility. But the water infrastructure on private property is the private property owner's responsibility. And so what this company is saying is, hey, you don't want to be surprised by that bill when the time comes. Wouldn't you like to be covered by paying a nominal fee every month to cover yourself when that time comes? And so it's legitimate, but I don't know whether you need it, and I don't know whether you're currently covered on your current insurance plan. And so if you're even concerned, call your existing insurance company for that conversation. My plan, because there's been such negative response from the public, and rightly so, because their mailings have been confusing, is to ensure we do not engage in this type of relationship or partnership again. Any type of communication should come from the city, advising you that there are X number of companies that provide this service, and go ahead and call them on your own time. But so I've received them as well. They're going out across the city. But again, if you're concerned, speak to your insurance broker. So I don't think we have any other questions, nor am I want to give you a moment just to talk about the community association. I don't want to put you on the floor. You have a community association coming up at the end of the month, talk about regular issues in the community. But we have invited officials from the planning department to come and give an overview of the official plan, and particularly Ridgemont community. Because questions have been raised, about how this will impact the Ridgemont community, and the Ridgemont homeowners need to have a better understanding of that. So I just want to yield the floor to you for a minute.
Thank you, Councillor Rockington, very much, and thank you for all the work you have been doing with the Community Association and the residents for your 2 terms. In no order of importance, I've made notes while I was listening, and I'd like to welcome all our residents to our bi-monthly meetings, which have predated us moving to this neighborhood. They used to be on the last Wednesday of every month. They're now on the last Wednesday of every other month. Next one on the last Wednesday of March, the last Wednesday in May, which usually is our AGM, the last Wednesday in July, September, and November, and then we start again January, March, and so on. So these meetings are open to residents to attend. If they wish to address an issue or ask questions, they're welcome to let us know in advance, and we go from there. About the most prolific comments this evening were the ones we've always been dealing with over the years, which is traffic through the neighborhood, the property standards, rooming houses, and things like that, and also the crime, which we did very much here and to have abated during the COVID. So just to let everyone know, the association board of directors, myself, work very, very closely with our councillor. In fact, councillor would, I'm sure, agree that we're almost in daily contact, sometimes several times a day on many issues. So on my own, with the board members, I'm also in contact with many city people addressing the problems. And Maria, I thought you had left the neighborhood and you've more than made up for it this evening, asking at least 7 or 8 questions. So welcome back. And you're welcome to call me at 613-288-004. We need to talk. Going on to the focus on safety on Bank Street, this has been an ongoing issue for us for over 25 years and about 5 councillors, including the mayor. So we really focus on this. The councillor and ourselves are working very closely, and many ideas have been put forth. None have so far been accepted completely, so we continue to work on that. The stretch from Home Depot to Walkley is the area for our concern, for this neighborhood, for our association, for our residents, and we'll be working on that. The traffic problems, I would, and everyone will agree, generally speaking, are not the product of our residents, but people cutting through the neighborhood. So these are people who are coming from Ottawa South, heading downtown or going to Walkley and trying to avoid the lights at Walkley and Bank. And they'll take the first street of opportunity, which would be Kitchener, St. Paul, Foxborough, Vancouver, or anything to get onto those Walkley Bank. Fixing the potholes, councillor and myself have worked very closely. Last year, the whole of Banff was, fixed. And again, there are some new potholes, but I'm sure they'll be fixed again. The issue of developers, as we have long experiences, they come with their ideas and their site plans and their wishes to join our community and work with us. And generally, we have found that they then turn around and turn their backs on us. There has been one issue, one developer here, and I won't name any names or name the location, who actually told the councillor and myself to mind our own business after being very solicitous about our concerns. In regard to the pipe, councillor, that you were talking about, there is a company called Aqua Drain, and there's another one, I think, Roto-Rooter. So I know many of the homes in our area, if you look at the pipe that goes from your drain in your basement to the city sewer, if you run a camera through it, you'll find that it's in very bad shape. This company will come in and put a sleeve in the pipe, and it becomes emulsified and becomes like another pipe within the pipe, and it's strong and reinforces the cast iron pipes, which all the homes have, and this is good for 25 years. So that's one thing that you can do. If I've overlooked anything, please, councillor, bring it to attention, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Norm. Thanks for attending tonight, and for your board as well for working with me on a number of issues. It's very much appreciated. And just a shout out to, the RCA. It's not just the issues that Norm's read out tonight, but If you're interested in some other community issues, come. If you're not a frequent attendee at a community association, come to one throughout the year just to understand who's representing you on the association, but also understand some of the other community-based issues that we're discussing. So I just want to thank you again, Norm, and your board, and thank you everyone for coming tonight. My office will be following up on a number of issues that we've committed to. To Erin McCracken from my office, thank you. And Andrea Ward, my office manager, thank you for your assistance in getting this together. And yeah, I mean, Norm, there's a question. Can you provide further details regarding the upcoming RCA meeting? It's by Zoom. Should people just contact you?
Yes, I think that would be an idea. But like I also mentioned, we're updating our website and our Facebook is going to be completely revamped. We've got some new people on the board and they're revisit this, so they're going to take over that. But also, I think we all, Gary Howard, a huge debt. Gary delivers 500 flyers in 2 days every time there's an issue. We've had 3 flyers lately that Gary had delivered. And just so everyone knows, when anything comes up, we make sure every home gets notified. Every single home gets a flyer, at least 3 or 4, sometimes 5 times a year. So there is no reason why anyone should not, or anyone should feel left out or not feel that they're not being contacted by the community association. And once again, thank you very kindly, Councillor. Thank you, and thank you, Andrea. Thank you all.
Thanks, Norman. Here, ladies and gentlemen, is my contact information. As always, please reach out. Just a note, I do have a monthly e-newsletter that goes out the 1st of every month. If you don't receive it, if you would like to stay in touch monthly and find out what's happening in the ward, in your community, citywide, send me an email. We'll put you on the distribution list. So thank you everyone for joining us tonight. There's a lot of projects going on in our immediate community and just wanted to share with you those updates tonight. And please keep in touch. Stay safe, get the vaccine when it's your turn to get the vaccine, and reach out to my office at any time if I can help you. So thank you.